Good, how are you?
No, I broke my right thumb, we just did it cross country swimming in the west.
You've been salty. You've been salty, excited. Jesse come to us the day she had her surgery or the day before?
It was the day after, I think, it was the. Right.
Yeah. Okay, so it's 5 p.m. We'll call the meeting of the Historic Preservation and Architectural Review Board of the Village of Cooperstown to order and try to get everybody onto their Valentine's Day evening plans without much delay. Thank you all for being here. So we have a public hearing to open regarding the request for the demolition of barn between Brooklyn and Susquehanna Avenues. Is anybody here to speak regarding that?
That would be you, Patrick, wouldn't it?
He presented it last time. I wanted to open the public hearing in case anybody is here regarding it. And Jackson, do we have any communications regarding it? Okay. I'm gonna open both public hearings, Marcia, that's not gonna be too confusing, and we'll leave them open a little bit, and then move forward with a few items on the agenda, just in case anybody comes in. If nobody's here to speak about the demolition of the barn between Brooklyn and Susquehanna, we'll open the public hearing for 23 Lake Street on Hoffman Lane, the carriage house demolition request. Is anybody here to speak regarding that item on the agenda? Okay. And the property owner's not here right now either, correct? Okay, we're going to leave those open for a few minutes and move forward with the agenda. So we'll skip over items number 1 and 2 at this point. 87 Beaver Street. Is anybody here regarding 87 Beaver Street?
Jacob, and he's not here.
Okay.
Represented by the contractor.
Let's go to 22 Eagle Street. Robin, would you like to tell us what you'd like to do?
I want to put a fence along basically the back line of my property from my garage to my neighbor's garage. I have letters from 4 neighbors. I have the additional one that say they're all okay with it. It's a 72-inch fence. So that's why I'm here. The back line for many years, I had a very nice spirea hedge. And over the last 5 years, it's died basically. So I want to have that dug out and have arrangements with Kevin Green and Epic to do that. And then Oneon Fence Company will put a fence in. I have a picture of that if you want it.
Jackson provided us with the file. So the one that you had circled is the one you're choosing.
Yes.
From Oneonta Fence Company.
Yes.
Number 920. And it is black aluminum, correct?
Yes.
Okay, 72 inches tall.
Yes.
Correct. Okay.
And there will be a gate in the back at a convenient spot so that if I need to get back beyond my garage, I can do that. Then I will have it planted, and in my head, it's going to be fairly dense so that you won't see the fence for the most part. And I think it will grow through the fence too. And again, in my head, it's going to look nice, make my yard look better than it does right now. And as a bonus, I hope cut down on the throughway that the deer now have through the yard, because I am concerned about the tick-borne diseases that come with them.
Okay. Any questions for Robin? George? Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion?
Cheat sheet.
Go ahead.
I've got my cheat sheet. You can put it up.
So I move that,
Preservation Architectural Review Board has made the following determination with regard to 22 Eagle Street.
Eagle, yes, why do I want to call it Eagle Street, 22 Eagle Street, correct.
I would say 3A, B, D. I think that's it.
Okay,
Pretty straightforward.
do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Dave or Jesse, take your pick, Marshall. Any discussion? Liz votes yes.
That's what it is.
David, yes. David, yes.
Great, thank you. All right, and in Pat's absence tonight, George, you are welcome to vote too.
okay. George, yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't clarify that before the meeting. Fantastic. Okay. Was somebody in the doorway for, and has somebody else come into the room for 87 Beaver?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll do that and then we'll go on to the public hearings again. Go ahead, tell us about your project at 87 Beaver Street.
So the homeowners are looking to change the front porch to an open porch. This, I believe they sent some pictures of what they're looking for. They feel like the enclosed radius glass porch is sort of not typical. They don't care for the design. So they're looking to utilize everything that they can off of the existing floors, the ceiling, the floor. There's a existing stone footing with a column on it. They want to keep that. And essentially just open it up with a I think it's gonna end up being a railing, so there's gonna be a railing design that we had talked about, which was a square ballast with I'm not sure if they sent a picture of it. I'm trying to
They did send some drawings. If you'd like to come look at the file that's here, you may, because I'm not clear on which one is the stone footing that's going to be maintained. So can't tell kind of from these drawings. I don't know if anybody else has that question.
So, yeah, it's hard to tell because there's a the house is kind of on a cantilever right here. So there's a stone footing that would be behind this column.
So the front left column as you're looking at the
Yeah,
house.
there would be one right behind the front left column. And it's sort of a laid stone miniature column, and I haven't seen it, but they said they have two old columns that they've salvaged from.
I think they had a picture of this.
Yeah, there's, yeah, there's.
Are some other images.
You can see the stone column he's talking about in that plan view and you're right there that's showing the floor.
Okay.
You don't know.
That was okay.
Thank you so much for sending us.
Okay, okay. So it's along the driveway side.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, I think it's actually probably a whole the house to access there.
so when you say it's holding up the house, this is.
Yeah,
the wall.
the house up above
Mhm.
comes through,
Okay,
but it's kind of recessed in the porches.
did anybody have any questions regarding this project? I know the last time we looked at it, we felt that the materials were not as giving us as clear of a sense of the project as we needed. Do people have a clearer sense of the project at this point?
I do. I'll speak to a couple things here. I'm trying to find my copy of the files, but I can't seem to find it, so.
Would you like to see the file, Dustin?
What I would say about this particular building is if you look carefully at this, what you can see is that, and if you look at the number, the initial porch is recessed underneath the second story. And it was just a little tiny porch. And I think this, are you saying there's a stone footer here?
No.
Okay, where are you saying a stone footer is?
By the doorway, so.
Yeah.
The stairs, you can only see.
And that's because it was a really shallow porch. It was just a tiny little small square porch that bumped out a little bit beyond the second story to begin with, which is why none of these materials are technically matched. It's taken me a long time to get here. I'm the one who does most of the building history here. So I think that this circular porch, it's never mapped. It's not mapped until in 1915. So it's not original.
Sure.
It's old. It may be older than the house. My wager is it came from someplace else, and it's not. And it was put on because they decided that they wanted a place to sit or a place to hang out. But originally, when you're looking at the building, it's a concrete block, first floor, and it's recessed under to protect the doorway from people walking in. And I think it was an open porch, and it bumped out maybe 3 feet, and that's, I think, the stone that you're seeing underneath. And it is, I don't know if it's technically it's probably not technically cantilevered because it is actually over post, but that's what you're going to find when you take the porch off, I'm pretty sure. And so the key here is if they want something that fits as a 4-square porch, which is kind of what they're talking about, that would be square instead of circular. It goes, that makes sense. There's more of that than this, because as I say, I think this is something that came from somewhere else and got reused.
Sure.
And I'd love to know where.
Yeah.
I'm so curious. I've been looking around in the village trying to find something that looks like it belongs to it, but I can't find anything. So anyway, but something that is square, something that is in proportion. There are ones that are full span on the street. There are also ones that are short. And the full depth is more characteristic of a house that may be a bit later than this one. But if it were characteristic, it would have a concrete block underneath the porch as well, rather than a wood frame on. So it would actually pull this detail of the foundation out and around the porch if it were built in the period. And I kind of feel like that's something that you might want to think about. Don't know. So that's kind of where I am on it. I understand why.
So you say this whole scary base, or this the block underneath the post?
It's probably, my guess is that originally the deck, and it still does actually, the deck is the same height as the water table blocks. So the blocks that are horizontal at the top of the foundation, those are, I'm guessing that's, that if they had built a porch like they envisioned at the time, you would have had rusticated concrete block that matches what's under the foundation of the main block coming up to that water table board, and then above it, it would probably be just for convenience sake, or it might have had stacked piers that matched.
And that's how, for example, some of
Right.
the other rock-based blockhouses in the village. So then there's no rule, but.
Right, there's no rule, there's plenty of variety to work with. But I think that a porch in the period would have had, because when you put a wood foundation next to a stone one, they do this all the time. And so you want to be coherent from one to the other, somewhere around the corner, and you just put rock face all across the front of their porch, and it looks really funny because it doesn't actually go with the way the porch was originally designed. So that's the thing I see. I think it could be better integrated in terms of how people did it historically, in part because those often last pretty well. Those block porches with the little block piers, and then the half columns that go above probably would make more sense. But we don't have any pictures that show what that initial open porch looked like.
Right.
At least we don't know that we've got any pictures. But that's a more likely guess, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
So, square ballast, square wood balusters out of stock lumber, probably not. Would be what I would say. But you might well have had those Tuscan columns sitting on top of the piers, the way that they are kind of right now, but they would have been longer, because of course they would have been, the piers would have been this height above the porch, and then you would have had columns setting on the piers. My best guess, that's all I'm saying. But I think that if you, I think that the porch would have better durability probably too, if the foundation carried, because it's needing a block foundation. Just a thought.
Okay. So
It's your thoughts, sorry about that.
Yeah, any other comments or questions? We are not here to design for you,
No.
that's the trick.
That is true. But what
Um,
I'm seeing is that the design that's being proposed doesn't seem to be a very good match in terms of the materials that are used in this particular Foursquare. The Foursquares we're looking at are different, you know, they're.
Yes, I don't disagree.
Differ.
I see where the intention is to blend the shingles or shapes
They're
with the upper level is there, but that would not have been the treatment that would have been used on the skirting of the porch. And there are some rock-based block houses around with, more historically appropriate porches, maybe some that have adjusted a little bit, but, the skirting would have been much simpler, it would have been enclosed, there's potential, it would have been block, there's potential, it would have been wood with the block piers.
The likelihood is that when this house was built, there was a concrete company that pulled up on the front lawn. And they actually manufactured the block right there on site. And so they could have kept going ad nauseum until they were done.
Or was it?
It may have been a kit house, but a kit house is still
Yes,
manufactured
they
concrete
did.
on site because
Yeah.
it's too heavy.
Yeah.
You don't want to have to move all that.
No,
wood.
they came with their own block makers.
Right.
So we would want to reconsider the skirting design to sort of.
You really tried to get the treatment of the skirting, potentially with the block piers. That, looking at some historic photographs, which we can point you to of other block houses in the village. And that doesn't mean current conditions, since we don't know what this looked like, you haven't found any historic photographs. You haven't found any historic
It's really
photographs.
hard to get into the Word files anymore, which is your best.
I'm sure they wouldn't have an issue with changing the skirting detail.
One of the things that, when you're looking at Foursquare houses, if you look at photographs where the integrity is good, in other words, they continue, you know, they maintain what. The tendency is horizontality rather than verticality.
Mhm.
So you would have carried your foundation around, you would have carried your piers around, and then you would have carried the roof to match. If you changed materials halfway up the way this one does, your roof would set at that line, and then you would have something different above it. The idea is sort of a more horizontal, it's related to prairie style kind of building, Frankwood, right? Early Frankwood, but that's the notion that you're looking at. So you're looking at trying to carry the lines horizontally rather than going way up tall.
Jackson, you know what your district built, I'm guessing routines.
Yeah, it says 1909
Okay.
or it says circa 1910 or 1915 in the list.
Yeah.
It's mapped in 1909, I think.
Okay,
It may not be mapped until 1915. I think it's mapped.
have you been in the basement?
No,
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's a basement under this section of the porch or whether it's notched in the basement.
yeah, I've only been able to, just what you can see from outside.
Yeah,
Once the porch is removed, it's gonna tell us a lot about the original house.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because with the, you know, current design, you know, it's you can't, there's no way to know where their work footings or whatever.
Yeah, until you take that porch off, you're not going to be able to tell a lot.
Yeah.
So, but as I say, I think the porch is later. Later addition, possibly older.
Hmm.
People reused stuff in a way that we don't know.
I got 1910.
You can't use it in your house, yes?
The lawn on my house.
how quickly are you, And the owners hoping, you know, you've got to do the demo, right? Of the original.
Yeah.
They're hiding like one, whether it's.
When the
Yeah.
weather
You know,
breaks.
When you're sure that it's broken.
So
Yeah.
This has been nice.
if we got you some examples of historic porch images with the rusticated or rock face block and, you know, similar period houses to share with the owners. We can't design for you, but we can say this is what another house in the village, you know, so they understand some of the more appropriate skirting and treatment of the posts, things like that, very quickly. And then if the owners are willing to consider adjustments to the design that would be more appropriate before the next meeting, since you have plenty of time before technically building season starts.
Yep.
And you've got a demo to do, does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I mean, I think the drawings are better than they were and they're close. If there's gonna be an attempt to do this, it wouldn't take a lot to do it in a way that was probably a lot closer to, maybe not the original porch because of what Jesse said, but a porch of that period in the village.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
so does that make sense? We're not designing for that, but we're giving you examples of some images of.
Sure.
Sort of closer to the mark.
So Jackson, I know I can give you at least one image that can help. I'll send it over and he can send it to you.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm sure Jerry's going for authenticity and I'm sure he'd be very open to
Yeah.
Yeah.
seeing suggestions.
I think so.
Are we proposing to wait
For the next meeting,
till the next meeting?
I mean,
They're gonna be approved,
Mm.
subject to future.
if somebody wants to make a motion. Are there other questions or comments then before we go into?
Basically, we're just questioning what's gonna happen under the porch deck.
Yeah.
The decking, the piers
The
potentially, and the skirting.
skirting, yeah.
Are there other questions about materials or treatments?
I've said enough.
I've said enough. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you. Okay, does somebody want to make a motion then?
Well, okay. That, we move that H Park provides certificate of appropriateness for the project at 87 Beaver Street. Under the criteria 2B and 2C, 3A, B, and C. With the condition that we hear any changes in skirting.
Thank you.
Foundation is good.
What was the other?
Foundation.
Foundation.
Yes,
That's good.
foundation is good.
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, Liz votes yes.
Jesse, yes.
David, yes.
David, yes. George, yes.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Jacob.
very
Okay.
much. So, we'll get Jackson some images and he'll pass them along.
Yeah, no problem.
And, you can speak with the owners about it.
Very good.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Me too. Okay, why don't we, revisit the public hearings? Is anybody here regarding the, demolition of the barn between Brooklyn and Susquehanna Avenues? Okay.
Even aware of it?
Well, we did talk about it at the last meeting and it was noticed, so. There were no deer to send letters to though, right? So unfortunately.
Where's our barn?
The ghosts are. The ghosts of generations of deer. I think Patrick has too.
You been in it, Patrick?
I've been past it.
Okay, hearing no dissent, does somebody want to make a motion regarding the proposed demolition of the barn between Brooklyn and Susquehanna Avenues?
To recuse myself.
You're right.
Oh, we'll close, yes, I'm sorry, let's close the public hearing. Thank you.
Never done one for demolition.
Thank you, Jesse.
The H part, this is a decision based on the following principles of compatibility for demolition of the former deer barn for, on the Iroquois farm, on the Iroquois property. It is, so we are allowing a demolition. Where's demolition in here?
I think we just make it pretty simple, based on the conditions.
Based on the condition and its lack of use. It is a building that, we believe that it should be allowed to be demolished.
And really, yes, condition and lack of integrity.
Lack of integrity and, yeah, okay,
Okay,
I've done it.
okay, thank you. Do we have a second? George, thank you. Any discussion? Liz votes yes.
Jesse, yes.
David, yes.
Recused. David Sanford recused. Sorry, David. One ear, not the other. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for waiting.
Yeah.
Okay, is anybody else here regarding 23 Lake Street? I would like to keep that open. You're here? Okay, you're here? Okay, okay. Okay, then we will address it. If nobody was here, I was gonna leave it open. Okay, so, nobody has spoken against it. Would anybody on the board, does anybody on the board have any comments regarding the proposed demolition of the carriage house facing Hoffman Lane connected to the property at 23 Lake Street?
Talking about the continuous demolition. It's already halfway there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it is.
Or demolition by
I don't
neglect.
think there's any other option.
Anybody have any other comments?
I do have one comment. That building is constructed very early. It's probably pre-1810, which means that it contains some lumber that someone would find useful for work down the road. So I would prefer not to see it just simply bulldozed or hauled away and chopped into bits and hauled away.
This has been considered for sure, definitely, and yes, people have been
Yeah, I
complaining.
you've got some really heavy old growth timber in there. There's stuff that's this big. And we will never ever see that again.
Right,
It's gone forever unless the humans leave the planet. And once it's gone, it's really gone, and it's a shame to lose that lumber because it is the best lumber for building, even if it's in smaller pieces. So, and there's a lot of wide board flooring and so on as well. So I would urge finding someone who will store it and eventually find a use for it, because increasingly people are using it.
And there are certainly organizations that can help put in touch with people who do salvage it. So, certainly look into that. We encourage that.
to the right place.
If you
And
keep,
locally.
yeah.
Yeah.
Since it's local wood.
Right, probably do it that way. I'll take it.
Okay, does anybody want to make a motion regarding the demolition of the carriage house at 123 Lake Street facing Hoffman Lane?
23 Lake Street.
I'm sorry, 23.
I'll make the motion. I move that we approve the demolition of 23 Lake Street and Hoffman Lane Carriage House.
Okay, thank you. Dave Strogatz is seconding?
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Any discussion? Okay. Liz votes yes.
Yes.
David, yes.
Here he is.
George, yes.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to 76 Fair Street. And we did vote on this one. We did, yes, thank you. Okay, 76 Fair Street. Anybody here? Hi.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Hello.
David Heinberg, along with my wife Sharon, we own 76 Fair Street. And I guess my brother was here last month about raising the roof, and I've altered that slightly. I'll get into that. I think the best way is 3-4 things that you want to cover and I want to go over, so I'll leave that one for last, if you don't mind. guess the easiest thing, at the zoning meeting. Went for the dormer, plaza behind one of the bedrooms. And I had given this picture to Jackson, I don't know if you still have it, the zoning has it. But, and I don't know why this happened, but my architect, I guess when it's a 10-foot side setback, she just assumed that it would be better off to not put a second floor closet there. I don't recall the resident who lived at 78 First Street ever saying anything about it. Architect just didn't put it in, so basically I'm asking for it now. I've reached out to the owners of the property. The only way I know how is through mail. I left a letter at their 78 Fair Street address and also sent one to a Morris address and haven't heard back from them. I don't know if you've heard back at all either. So it doesn't appear that anybody's lived in the house since September when the house was purchased. This is a picture here of how the closet, this little step right here is the old part of the house that's still existing. This was the part that's taken down. This is a closet, as you can see, it's about a 4-foot dresser here. So the closet went back about 4.5 feet. And directly behind this closet was a chimney. My dad put a fireplace in the first floor, and there was a chimney going through there. So of course, that's all been taken out, and the previous homeowner, 78 Fair, was very grateful for that. So I'm asking to basically put this closet back to the second floor. It would service the bedroom right in front of it. Okay, the bedroom tends to be rather small. So I'd like to have that included. We haven't done construction on this dormer yet. So I'm hoping that.
Where's that dormer on the drawing? So I got some perspective.
It's coming off the back there to the
Yeah,
gutters.
it's not gonna be so.
Okay, this is the dormer here. This actually doesn't really show, this is the side facing the gate there. The dormer would be right here. There'd be no window in it. It's basically the closet, because this gets all pushed back because of building codes. The closet drop is going to be 6 feet by 5 feet, or 5.5 feet.
When you say this, what gets all pushed back because of building codes?
This, all this new construction that's already happened, that was approved, is back, a good 1.5 feet, maybe 22 inches from the house, just because you have a 3-foot side setback, building, okay? So of course, the dormer wouldn't come any further than that, so that cuts down the side.
Can you draw it in, or do we have a drawing in here that?
I did one for zoning.
In that elevation, everything that was included in zoning was in there. That's the southern elevation there.
I
And
just see
you can see the dormer in elevation.
And I had one, I left, I don't know, I guess they just told me to share it. I don't have a second copy.
It's all right there. If anything.
So in one of these drawings, we put in one of these drawings.
Yes. Okay, now this is facing the
The northern elevation, the one in your hand.
Okay, so this is that dormer I'm talking about. Yeah, what's that saying? It'll take me a couple minutes.
That's the southern elevation of the dormer.
The south elevation, but doesn't really show like a big picture from up above.
The plan view is in the.
Yeah.
It's- Sorry, Jen.
No.
So what you do is just the spring,
Right, okay,
so this is the.
And this is what-
This is what is
yeah, that was,
This is the 3-foot setback we've got from code or something. This is pretty much all within that 3-foot setback. And this is the shape of the yellow is very good for everybody's just user class to move another 6 feet toward the property.
and it goes along with something that's already.
It's all in line with what's already there.
And actually, this is you won't be able to see it from the sidewalk. You can walk by and because it's up in and out, you won't see it. In the driveway side, you'll be able to look at it from 74th Street. You'll see the dormer that on this side. But this side over here, because the house is so close, you won't see that. There's already framing underneath that would allow for that. So kind of
And
like
this is the street,
no, this is.
No, that's
78.
So yeah, the street is, these are your front doors.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Any other questions on the dormer? Faucet? So,
ZBA has approved construction within the side yard setback contingent on approval from this body.
Of the drummer.
okay, the second thing, and I noticed it wasn't on tonight's schedule. It's concerning the passage doors into the house. 76 Fair Street is rather unique in that, yes, it has two front doors on it. But always, since I was young, I always had four doors that were visible from the street. And I don't know of any single family house in Cooperstown that has four separate doors into the house from the street. So that was unusual, which is one of the reasons why, I kept the front of the house and I actually want to keep the middle until we found out that it was not salvageable. So, the front is, but that's, and I don't know if that got denied or tabled, but I have a picture here that shows, of course, I'm assuming everybody knows the two front doors, you drive by there. But before there was a side door over here with a porch, and there was also a door just to the left of the garage. It was approved, a one-bedroom apartment was approved for this property. Of course, with the apartment, you need an access door. So that actually makes a fifth door that's visible from the street. Now I realized a lot of doors. So originally was approved to switch this door here to a window. And I'm a very active person. I'm always going in and out the garage, whether it's a bike, a mower, this or that. And I'd rather not leave the garage door open all the time or have to keep pushing the button, get in and out of the garage. So seeing how there was a door there before, I'd like to be able to put it back there. And my brother's doing construction that make the two doors look identical size-wise, 32-inch. They both would have like a little bluestone pad in front of them. So
where is the door on the garage gonna be? Is this showing us exactly what you're proposing?
I think on Teresa, that's the apartment. Okay.
And where is the other door you're
I don't
talking
even see the
about?
window here. So this is actually.
So we need a drawing that shows us what you're proposing.
It should. Okay, I think I'm gonna have it in this.
There's a person door on the.
Yeah, it's the second drawing in the drawings.
So it is there.
This one here, right?
Beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, so it's in the-
Good package.
But, okay,
So it would be to the north of the paired garage doors.
okay,
Oh,
The last page?
Yep, sorry, I got you.
so this does not have two doors.
She doesn't have it though, but you have it on your.
That's right.
It's what was emailed,
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah, no, I was,
Okay, no, you don't have,
Is this the one?
that is the one that you don't have it either. But Jackson has it.
This is, it's in the email and I can print it out.
okay,
if we
no,
use
we
the
have
same
emailed
plans
some
for-
letters.
This is the email this is Jackson's most recent.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is what we looked at in December, correct? The concern about this was everything was just too jammed in. We needed more balance. Aesthetically, there's just too much going on the front of that garage. We understand you have an apartment. We understand you want another door. But it became a big jumble, and that was our concern. Does everybody have this now? Did you do this in December with the,
With the doors flanking that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's what it's doing.
The original plan called for it to be a window,
okay, we
so,
were concerned about
well, it is wider over here.
not gracefully, but this is not, this, that.
Well, it won't be right, I'll try to leave like, unfortunately, I think you only have like 50 inches here, so 32-inch door, I have like 12 inches on this side, and maybe 6 inches on this side.
And Just seemed, does anybody want to? That. Sorry, Jackson.
No, I apologize, failure of document control there, got too many plans, but I emailed the right.
Yeah, that's right. Right. This
Yeah.
is December.
Yeah, it says new door and it is.
Yeah, it's finished. I just was counting on them.
Yeah, no, yep.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean. I guess, overall, it's just this poor little house is being asked to do an awful lot that it was never intended to do, and so it's just. It's really, really hard to. It was just, it was a little two-unit house when it was built. And it got added onto like topsy, and then most of the topsy's been removed, and now we're adding onto it again. And it's just, yeah, it's.
The last time we reviewed it, we just asked that the balance of the fenestration be reconsidered, but I think you've got all your structural headers and such in there now, right?
Yeah, you do.
I have a header there, so whether it's a door, the window arrived today. So unfortunately, it's a barber, and I can't take it back, so. I'm just asking this, I mean, going biking, walking to the, downtown, my wife and I walk a lot. It's just, I can see us going in and out of the door all the time.
But that's a door to the garage, not to the house.
Right, go to the garage, and then from the garage, we'll go into the house, we'll probably take our shoes off.
Side door on the house as well.
And we have a side door in the house, we don't go directly into the house. So that'll probably be the second most frequented door. The two front doors really don't get used. Because one's a bedroom. And the other one is gonna go to like a living room, my mom and pop piano there. It's like, neither one of the doors will get used, probably in an emergency. So my mom and dad always use that garage door to go in and out.
But there weren't two man doors on the garage. Then.
No, this is what it looked like. Had a person door to the side of the garage. The garage was a classic 1950s garage with a person, with a person door and kind of the thing next to the main door.
So,
Shed roof, the whole thing. It's absolutely classic.
So the fifth door is actually within the garage and it goes directly from the garage to the house.
no, there is a door that goes from the garage into the house, right? Okay, but right now, the only way to get into the garage would be to open up the garage door, come from the house, and there's also gonna be a back door that goes onto the back deck. But coming from the street, you're either gonna have to push a button, and open the garage door, or you're gonna have to go through the house and go around to get into the garage.
Okay.
So,
There'd be a garage door on the right side of the garage, and we're not here to design. I think, given the amount of effort and investment you've made in everything else you're doing, this street facing mishmash of doors is not gonna be something that's, gonna add to the positive impact of the house. That's my concern.
if I put it on the side,
That was the question, yes.
that is a possibility. I probably would want like a 36-inch door versus a 32, only because now you're coming at an angle. If somebody wants to bring a bed upstairs, or kitchen appliance.
So that's the door to the apartment or to
To the apartment only, it doesn't.
are we talking about the right door or the left?
The
door?
right door towards 74.
Okay. The question was, can the left door wrap around the side of the garage on one side or the other then?
No.
Be running into the stairs to go up.
Yeah, basically I'd be over halfway back
Yeah.
of that side and I already have a door back there, so it wouldn't make any sense.
So
to put a
there
second door.
is a person door on the back side of the garage as well?
At least with that, yes, up above.
Does anybody have any additional questions about the door?
I think that review of carriage house fenestration was actually this topic, letter C.
Yeah. Okay. So you want us to consider the dormer, the door as proposed in December.
Mhm.
And what else?
Before I get to the potential of raising the roof, there's what's called penetrations in there, which I'm assuming like a soffit.
No.
Fenestration means openings,
That was.
Oh, the openings,
So
okay,
that's
so that would be
the-
doors and windows.
okay. All right, so I've covered that. I do believe that I just went on Zoom here and told my brother, he was talking about the, I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. I don't want to do anything with that house that, you know, doesn't have the approval, so, we haven't gotten at that point where we're doing any work. My wife and I really bought this house, the intention was to leave the front exactly like it was. Okay, with the exception of changing out the aluminum siding to, I guess there's a smart LP, smart wood, you know, versus here, so. I think everybody's on board that that's an improvement.
Has that been?
Haven't-
I don't think we've discussed, I don't know.
the siding, so when it comes time, I'm happy to discuss that with you. I'm being told by both my architect, I guess, in the county, that if you do any work at all on this, these windows need to be changed out. And basically, they're gonna be cased, the upstairs bedroom. For egress, for fire egress, that they're gonna be casement, but they're gonna look like a double hung, so they're gonna look exactly like these are. They're gonna be Marvin elevated. Casement, crank out, but these will be changed, these are single pane windows. So these windows here and the two on the other side will be the only ones in the house that wouldn't get changed. So it's more for safety, fire and safety, so I don't know if that preempts this article or not, or have to abide by it. Those windows have been ordered. So I talked about the county codes and the architect, and they say that you can't get around that. So, like I said, before I go into the roof, and I don't know, my brother covered, and we have the property next door with a soffit, it overhangs like 12 inches, and you see there's a return on the bottom. You can see on the garage, the garage that was there, you have a soffit that also hangs out over there. And I'd like to duplicate what's at 74 for basically the entirety of 76 Fair Street. So right now, 76 Fair Street has a little return molding here. This is a lot of it's rotted. And whether I'm allowed to raise the height or not, I like to be able to put a soffit here that comes out almost identical to what 74 has.
Buildings, I mean.
Okay, so the house at 78 actually has a 2-foot overhang. So you have houses on both sides of
Different
it.
periods, different buildings, different.
I mean, theirs is 1850.
Different architectural style.
Okay, different architectural styles. Their house is like 1850, I was told, and ours is 1840s. different
Architectural styles.
I'll give you that. Okay, so, I just need to figure out what we're gonna do with that, so that's the one thing. Okay, hopefully you can discuss that.
David, are you talking about your cornices kind of, these little return?
The cornices, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, now the thing that I guess the last thing is the,
David, one last thing about the dormer and your letter to the new neighbors. 78, you mentioned, because our house sits within 10 feet of side property line, we need to have permission to do this work. Was that just trying to be a good neighbor, or is it actually required that we get some letter from 78? I understand that they're not
Right.
responding, but we could.
so we did a public hearing. And-
Yeah, so, and yeah,
I don't know how to,
and I'm asking if there's any guidance on that.
If there's any requirement that you receive an agreement from your neighbor to give them any sort of setback.
As long as zoning approves and zoning's
You know,
approval is conditioned upon our approval.
Okay, so 78's there, okay.
And I also sent notice of the public hearing to their address on Fair Street as well as in Lawrence.
And I think if we approve that, we should make a contingent upon Martin's review that, that's to make sure that, that he double checks that.
Okay.
And we're interpreting the law correctly. Thank you for checking that.
Back to the roof.
Okay, I know that when my brother presented this to you the last meeting, we tried to raise the roof 18 inches, it was turned down, it's almost unanimous, somebody made a recommendation. So I've revised that to only ask for 12-inch height. And the reason I'm asking that is for hardship. I'm gonna get into that in a minute here.
Hardship is a hardship to the building, not. the
Okay,
owner.
let me go through this, please. Okay, like I said earlier tonight, when we bought this house and when we went in front of the historical board last spring, I had no intentions touching the front part of the house. Perfectly happy with it. I grew up in it. I knew it was. Yes, the ceilings in the second floor are low, and I was perfectly willing to deal with it. To get ready for the new construction, last year we took down the Latin plaster, and I wanted to better insulate one of the upstairs bedrooms to try to be able to keep it warm in the winter. That was always the problem when I was a child. I mean, you had long johns, sweatpants, socks, turtlenecks, electric blanket. It wouldn't hold heat. So last summer, I insulated it. The problem is the rafters are only 4 inches. Okay, and even after all this construction work is done, the front third of that roof is going to stay the same with only 4-inch rafters. And the code today is, I don't know, it's like R46 or R49. That's a lot of insulation. When you only have 4 inches to work with, you can't get enough insulation in there to make it warm. I had 2 space heaters going in December. I spent 2 nights there and I froze. Now, my wife and I will sleep downstairs, but if our daughter comes to stay with us in the winter time, it's gonna be very uncomfortable for her to sleep up there. It's gonna have to go through the same things that we went through as kids. To heat this house, we're gonna use a heat pump. Okay, maybe some electric baseboard, but generally a heat pump for the whole house. There's gonna be no oil, there's gonna be no propane. So in order to make that work and be energy efficient, I need to be able to have enough insulation in there that not all the heat's gonna rise right through the ceiling. And that's where most of the heat goes. It doesn't go through the walls, it goes straight up. And that's what happened to me in December, and if it's not rectified, it's gonna continue to happen. So I'm only asking for the 12 inches, and I'm not trying to change the appearance of the house. I'm just trying to raise it enough so I can get some more insulation in there, so that you can sleep there at night. So, I think so. That's my reason for that. So, you know, I've already mentioned last year that, the house next door, and I know the historical board wasn't in effect, 18 years ago, but that house got raised well over 7-8 feet, and didn't seem to be a problem. And I don't know, I mean, that was not for insulation, that they made the house 50% bigger. All I'm asking for is to be able to have a house that I don't freeze in the winter, period. I've lived with bedrooms that are 6 feet tall, and I'm 5'10", and I've lived it. I'm not claustrophobic. So like I said, I was going to live with that before, but I spent a couple nights there. So hopefully you'll work with me on this.
What kind of insulation did you install?
Wool installation. The new rock wool was R13 material, which is the most you can get in a 4-inch cavity. So those are the things. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Consider alternative insulation.
Even if I were to, and I'm gonna have it blown in, I guess that's the seal, whatever that is, that's the most energy efficient. It will work, spray foam. You'll get more than any kind of batting or wool, but you won't get anywhere near that R46 value that they're recommending. I'd be lucky to get half of that in a 4-inch cavity.
Spray foam, I think, is 6.5 an inch, and a lot of the rock walls and things are like 3 something.
3.5.
Inch. But I certainly appreciate not.
This is, if this is going to get done to this house, I know the historical significance of this. But if you're ever going to upgrade this house and make it energy efficient, now's the time you're going to do it. Otherwise, God forbid, the next 50, 100 years, it's going to be the same old story. Any question for me, or sit down?
My concern is altering the fascia on the front of the house.
If that is a sticking point, I'll do my very best to keep it as close to what it looks like today. I'll recreate it. Both the front and the sides. That's not as important to me as allowing me to get enough insulation in there.
I don't know, Liz, you'd have to raise the front elevation also.
Yeah. It would all go up a foot in order to maintain the same roof line. And I'm just looking at it from a percent standpoint, and you're looking at raising the house. Better than 10% of its height at present.
What height did you have? Under Jackson, you measured it?
Yeah. What was our number there?
Was it 19 on the ridge?
1911.
So it'd be 2011.
Yeah.
So that's about what?
Are you talking about
5%.
12 inches? So 21 and 1?
It's from the grade, I measured from the grade to the peak, and it was just shy of 20 feet.
I think the frame section is probably visually more what you'll actually observe. But it's going to considerably change the relationship between the front, the front cornice and how it sets above the porch. The porch is not original, the porch is, late 19th century. But yeah, it will change it. There's no getting around that. You survived sleeping in the cold. I'm kind of, I don't know. It's a hard one.
There's all, in the description, you also mentioned the height of the room, and at its best it's 6'3", which I can relate to because that's how tall I am, but
that's only in, and I said.
Right, that's the best part.
That's only the best part, then it tails off. So if I could go down, I would go down.
Right, so in addition to the temperature, you also have the problem of people who are,
Nobody with 6 foot's ever gonna buy that house, but
well,
it is what it is.
It would be, a negative limitation in terms of those who would be considering it.
Do you have a plan for how to split the difference between increasing the roof cavity for insulation and raising the ceiling below? Or
I don't think it'd be practical to reduce it any. But I mean, if you were allowed me to go to 6 inches and just change out they're 4x4s that are roof rafters now. And just take those out and put 2x10s in there. Then at least I can do that spray foam and make it workable.
Can I make a question here on this, just as an innocent bystander? Could you keep the facade the same, it's like it's changed your roof? So the top roof line is a little bit higher, but then you can preserve the base.
Well, it's that front third, right back of the porch. That's the part that's not gonna get touched. So if I don't bring that up, that's where the headboard of the bed, that's where, and you're sleeping.
Yeah.
So that actually is the part that really needs to be.
From a historic design standpoint, that relationship of the slope of the roof is closely tied to the historic appearance of the building. So when you start steepening a roof or making a roof more shallow, you're changing what is called massing, and that's a pretty important characteristic of architectural review.
Yeah, I'm aware of this.
I realize
something to maybe.
it's a practical question, but this is a place where that massing question becomes we're trying to figure out how to look at the massing in terms of height slope ratios. So, and this one's a really clear example of type. And these little rooms upstairs, they weren't designed for much more than sleeping. They weren't designed for hanging out in, and they were mentioned. It's the difference in the way we use buildings today. And that's a big part of where we're hitting the wall, is that these rooms were not designed as places where people would hang out and do much aside from what you do in bed.
David, did Bill discuss with you how he proposes to raise this?
No, he's kind of leaving it up to me. And then I have, depending upon what happens here tonight, so I'll go back to the engineer and and I would do it, so, I talked to the engineer and he said, 2x10 would be fine, you'd be able to, hope get enough insulation in.
Well, if you strip the roof off and rebuild it. With 2x10s. And it changes the fascia considerably.
You're gonna disturb that when you. I agree with that.
Unless
It's been like that for
unless
180
it was
years.
not properly, so that you still had the same profile, but you were.
If you look closely, most of that wood is rotted, so it. Even
But we're not concerned with.
I know, but I wanna make it the way it was,
Yeah, we're.
and I'm not looking to
concerned
change that.
That we're not changing the appearance, the architectural appearance of the building. But to raise the roof, you gotta take the old one off, put a new one on.
And you're gonna take the whole back of that roof off anyways, because the dormer is actually gonna start the ridge and go back. So you're already taking half the roof off. The only thing you're leaving is that front half. The thing is visible from the street.
Which is the purview of this board, to
Yeah.
maintain the appearance of the historic structures visible from the street. And so I've been on this board long enough where we've had other people come to us to request similar changes to this building, and we have not approved them, and they have sold the building because we did not approve them.
Did they wanna, like,
It was a,
totally-
it was a demolition.
I don't want this. I would never buy this house.
No, and after the demolition was denied, they had requested changes similar to the ones you're requesting to the front. With a similar argument, theirs was use more than insulation, but a similar argument. And they also came up with plans to dramatically expand the building toward the back, which we have worked with you on. And I understand many of us live in old houses that we're trying to insulate and work around in small spaces and small rooms. I understand your desire to make that room more usable. In a way, we've accommodated your desire to make the overall property more usable by approving a pretty large addition to the back, and certainly out of scale with the original house, and even much kind of more structure than was there in the later additions in a way, without looking at the whole file. But this is a dramatic change to the front of the structure, and that's why we're all struggling. We've also, many of us have sat on this board where something similar to this has been proposed in a non-contributing structure, approved hesitantly, and then the structure fell over through the process of raising the roof. So they're raising the roof, we've seen it all. And it's the hardship on the building that we consider, not the hardship on the homeowner, and that's the way the law reads. Our purview is to protect the structure.
If I have an engineer that will sign off on that.
We had an engineer who signed off on the other.
Okay. Because I've been communicating with him and I said it's completely up to the historical board. I'm gonna be putting some LVLs up there anyways to support this dormer. So he wouldn't approve that. And I'd have on the other side, go for those 10-inch roof rafters to go towards the front. He said that wouldn't be a problem. He actually told me you could put it as little as a 6-inch, the 2x6 there. And I said, well, that would defeat the purpose. I wouldn't be able to put enough insulation. So he was more concerned with the load factor.
Does anyone have additional questions for Dave about any of the items? No. Dave, you mentioned that you're going to be coming back to us for siding on the front section and window replacement too?
Well, the Marvin elevates, were approved. Original plan,
Okay,
and even those bedroom windows that called for
casements, okay,
basements, and
So-
those were approved last year.
okay.
So I'm not doing anything,
So that, but the siding, you're going to propose changes to as well?
no, because on the plans that were submitted and approved, it says that that's smart.
LP
Yeah.
Smart
So I'm assuming you must have all got a copy of that, so that's.
That was from the original review. I'd have to look back.
What? I don't remember that.
If it isn't, let me know, and I'd be happy to apply it.
And this is one of the things I've personally struggled with this project is that it's, you have to forgive us, but we've dealt with so many changes with it in about the last year you've been coming to us that sometimes it's hard for us to keep track of everything we've approved or that's been altered in terms of approvals. Does anybody want to? Is there any portion of this request, the dormer, the doors on the garage, or the roof, or any one of these elements, something somebody would be willing to make a motion on at this point? Or do we have more questions for Dave? And we want to ask him to make some revisions?
Yes, I have a question then. The dormer and its design at this point, it's contingent on whether that roof is raised, correct?
No, that has no bearing,
So the dormer would actually, the ridge line, so the dormer will come to whatever the ridge line is that you're creating.
that is correct.
So if the ridge line stays where it is, it would come to that height. And not, okay.
It's gonna be a pretty flat roof, that dormer.
Yeah, it's a low
I
elevation.
mean, the only way you can make it work. If you saw the picture, there was a step down where the closet was. So the ridge line for the dormer is gonna be, it won't be flat, but you may have less than 5% pitch on it. So it's just, that's the way it is. Otherwise, I'm not gonna have, in that new dormer, there's not gonna be 8-foot headroom. So, but that's what I'm not making a request for headroom in the two closets and the bathroom upstairs.
Yeah, but.
So, but I'm letting you know, and it shows on the plan, it's a pretty flat roof.
There's plenty of buildings in the village where, mine included, where the second floor, my second floor is 6'9".
Oh, I suppose.
Well, that,
But
I mean,
that's-
you just said you wanted 8, so that's the difference between 6 and
Well, not there, but I asked
Yeah.
Teresa, she said, I guess, the building codes nowadays are, I think, that's 6 feet 8 inches, is what she mentioned to me for a fact,
Yeah,
to be quote legal. So that's probably what that'll be.
It's a percentage of the livable space has to be 7 foot.
okay.
But as a 6'9" person with an upstairs that varies from 6'4", 6'6".
But one
One
person in the room is extraordinarily tall.
I feel his pain. I wonder a little bit if we were just looking at this as a request for change in energy efficiency, if we would look at it differently, if the other considerations about massing and the original request to leave the front untouched weren't included in the conversation.
Well, we are try to be as supportive as possible about energy efficiency, but also
Yep.
maintaining the
Yep.
street facing building.
I guess one of the questions, we're talking about a heat pump, it occurs to me, I mean, it is an old building, I've never been in that particular building. So I don't know what the plan is like downstairs, but, with their potential wisdom or possibility, I suppose, of considering creating an insulation layer between the first and second stories in the original section of the building and zone it so that you were only, so that you actually had an envelope on the first floor that you heated consistently, and that if you were going to end up having someone come to stay in the second, you would just temporarily heat the second floor in a different zone with a different. I'm just wondering, you know, I mean, you know, the building is such, I mean, it's going to be, the front part of the building is compartmentalized with the idea that you would only heat the room you were in, historically speaking. And so unless you have a duct system that's carrying the heat everywhere in the building, then you've got some mini splits all over the place because each room's going to need its own mini split. So I mean, I got lucky. I had forced hot air, so I just used my forced hot air again for the heat pump. But if you are using any other kind of heating system, you'll already be mini splitted. So just the question, you know, if it's an area you would only use very occasionally, maybe you do zone it away and you insulate between the floors and then insulate again for as well as you can get. Just a thought. As I say, we're not supposed to design, but I'm thinking in terms of having gone through this process recently myself.
I understand. My daughter's in college, and our daughter's in college now, and when she graduates, who knows, she's gonna live with us for a couple of years. And she's gonna have to endure it. But there's only 3 bedrooms. There's 1 downstairs and 2 up. Unless she wants to sleep on a high bed in the living room downstairs. It's, you know.
Yeah, I don't.
My son came home during the pandemic and he's still in the attic with an Eden Pure, so you can have her talk to him.
Actually, sleeping in a cold room is healthy. Just saying. You know?
We many of us, for the sake of our old homes, have found what might not be considered conventional workarounds in our modern HGTV world. And so you start talking to a lot of people who are living in our old houses and making them function, you get a little bit more of a kind of practical approach to it.
Making them efficient at the same time.
Yeah.
I would hasten to add, it's not just, you know, sort of walking around in your parka. You can make them work, but you know, it's not as, we're not living in a suburban subdivision that we built last year.
I'm going to see if anybody else on the board is willing to make any motions. I have serious concerns about the appearance. The jumble of doors on the front of the garage. I have serious concerns about the proposal to raise the roof. And if there's a motion made regarding the dormer extension, I'd like a condition to be that the village attorney confirm that we can move forward without the neighbor's permission.
You're gonna do something.
We can do this together.
Yeah.
I'm only willing to speak to the dormer.
Right.
And I have concerns about the height of the dormer. So I'm a little contingent on the question of the roofing. Because it does the dormer, bringing that dormer up even higher is going to be a question. We are applying a principle of compatibility to
B and C.
Yes, I think
So
B and C.
to B and C.
Yeah.
Who's making the motion?
We're doing it.
This is okay.
It's a joint, this is joint.
I'm the caddy.
We're trying, well, no, we're trying to, I mean, we could use two of us to think about this. So under 3, we are looking at, we're applying the principle of compatibility, and I think,
A and B.
the scale of the dormer is probably okay, so B. A. I think we could go with A and B, yes, I agree. Okay. And then I guess because the dormer has a height, and I mean, you are trying to create, are we also looking at energy efficiency, 5 or not?
That was part of the original proposal.
Yeah,
Okay, so 5.
for the dormer, myself.
Oh,
The
does
dormer's made of
the dormer need to be insulated as well? So otherwise,
Yeah,
we're gonna have a giant hole in the back of the building.
But the dormer's all. That's all.
All right, in which case we won't worry about 5. Thank you. Okay. All right. And it is contingent upon the village attorney agreeing that it's okay if we don't get both neighbors' agreement approval. So we are worried about that.
Acknowledging that we have to check that.
Yeah, we
We
do
will
have,
check it.
we do have to check that.
They posted public hearings and I don't believe that there was. They
Okay,
didn't require it in the garage or.
so Jesse, is your motion complete?
Yes,
Do we have a second?
I guess it's gonna be you.
Sounded great.
Her partner in crime. Any discussion
I think we've done enough of that.
regarding the dormer? Liz votes yes.
David, yes. David, yes.
George, yes. George?
George, yes.
Thank you. David, I think from our silence, unless somebody is gonna jump in and make a resolution, there might not be a board member willing to make a motion to approve the request for the Carriage House Fenestration, the additional door as proposed, or the change in the roof line, and please correct me if I'm wrong. If we were to vote, then if nobody's willing to make a motion in favor, the vote, I would surmise would not be in your favor.
I have a question. It's just occurred to me about that door. Historically, garage doors often had a person door that opened as a smaller cell within the larger doors. I don't know if you can do that with a modern garage door opener situation, but could that be a solution? That you only open part of the door to get your bicycle in and out? To get in and out.
I've seen other instances where they've actually put a passage door through an overhead door, and they don't work very well,
Okay.
in my opinion.
The overhead door has a low articulating.
Yeah.
Right, that's
Yeah.
that's what I'm wondering. I don't.
So I'm not thinking that we'll look at that, would not be very appealing either.
But it's very traditional. It is something that people did with carriage barns on a regular basis. Was to open a person door into the paired doors so that you didn't have to deal with all of the door. So it was something that people did do, and so visually it fits more with what's going on in the village than there are quite a number of them in the village. That's all. I'm sorry, I can't come up with a better solution than that.
The passage door is convenience, so the roof is. The roof is not.
An additional 4 inches in cavity depth would allow the roof to be brought to modern energy codes.
So 4 inches in cavity depth, but that is a foot increase in height. No, so
There's 4x4s in there,
Four.
4 inches with spray foam would be over R48, or like R50 or something. It's diminishing returns with spray foam after you get to like 4 inches, but it would, with the air sealing that would come with it, it would make for a very tight ceiling
so with the current space and an additional 4 inches.
from a code construction perspective. Yep.
But we don't have to prove that.
No, it has to be proposed.
Yep.
As a design change, and we would still need to look at the cornice treatment, how the cornice would be adjusted in order to, yeah,
Rates.
the depth of the rates.
And Dave, I know, I suspect you have not submitted architectural quality drawings because that's an investment. But I think accurate drawings showing the least increase in change in the facade and the roof pitch would be personally helpful. I'm still not sure that the board, I say that with a caveat that I'm still not sure that it would sell it to the board, because it is a dramatic change. It's a major change, as we note in the minutes each meeting with each decision we make. It's a major change in the street facing facade of the building. Speaking to the architect, maybe some energy folks about ways you can achieve your energy efficiency without changing the roof line, which, as Dr. McMillan, who co-chaired this board for years, would have said is a long walk up a short cliff, might be something to consider. Anybody else have any feedback?
No, I think I agree.
Because our purview is the hardship of the building.
So if I was to propose an architect and have a redesign to raise it for 4 inches to show that the engineer handle it and then show what it would look like.
I
I
can't, but I cannot guarantee how people would vote, but I think having a accurate drawing of how it changes the massing and scale from the street and from the side.
And probably a good set of drawing, just a good schematic of how you're gonna work with, if you're gonna end up having to replace the fascia, the quarter into, higher, I think. The partial returns and the cornice treatment, we'd want to be able to see. My gut, if you went 4 inches, there's probably some tweaking to do if they end up having to be replaced. And how are they going to look so that they kind of fit? Because when you start changing the proportions going up, if you go with a thinner fascia or a deeper fascia or a quarter, a partial return that comes farther out or farther in, all of those things start to change the street appearance of the building. So you're looking to get as close as you can visually, and having something that's measured so the ratios are close would help. Because the person who actually does that work when they do the carpentry, they're going to need those drawings anyway.
Okay.
So,
And my additional concern when you're talking about adding any space to that area above the porch below the roof line is right now, because of the scale of the house, you don't notice the lack of fenestration on the second floor on the front of the house. The more you add to the front of the house above the roof line, there is
the absence of windows on the long wall begins to really show.
it's going to have an additional street facing impact that, you know, it's kind of a snowball or domino effect. So bringing some real accurate professional advice into this process with some accurate professional advice regarding what's the least you can do to get to the R value you're hoping for. All of those things, if that's the argument you're making, is energy efficiency. We need to see that in a more cohesive package, and I'm not sure what else to say about the garage, except, you know, you've tried so hard with so many aspects of this house, but the garage is just gonna not have a very good impact from the street, with the additional doors squeezed in. I can't say it more eloquently, it's like, I'm tired.
Okay. All right. I understand. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. 40 Lake Street. Yes, you may. We're gonna take 2 minutes.
Okay.
Sorry, guys, hope nobody had dinner reservations on Valentine's Day.
Just with my cats.
Saw this coming, we did Valentine's lunch.
Hey. My husband got a 25th anniversary and Valentine's Day this year. Okay, Dave. We'll work on that.
The anniversary and Valentine's are one and the same, so I'm saving on flowers.
And happy.
Double dipping and obviously get criticized.
How many years?
It's fine. Been good ones.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I was counting on the documents because I was like, my phone.
No, I have no
I didn't
idea.
even-
Honestly, I've got a huge,
But this is probably in Jackson's file. I think.
I have a large, the 76 pile of documents is.
Yes, I can imagine, and,
Fresh one. And I'm
I,
getting, now I'm getting emails marked up, screenshots and stuff. So that's a little bit.
and I honestly did not recall the siding, but we've had a lot of conversations, so.
Yeah, I'd have to go back.
It would be helpful actually to have some kind of summary.
Yeah, I'll get it together.
Meeting, what was approved, what was
Yeah.
tabled.
I'll get it together for the next meeting. And I'll get it out before the.
Jackson, what's the insulation value to close cell?
6.5 an inch, I think.
How much?
6.5 an inch.
That's for open cell.
Closed cell is, it's within 1 R value per inch, is it not? Are you? Closed cell is,
Cause I think my studio ceiling and closed cell.
yeah,
That's it. It looks. Put in like. It's not really.
right, because the air seal is so good that it's really, like I said, diminishing, like after you've got 3 inches in there or something like that, the rest is, you're getting less and less the more you add.
Yeah, the diminishing factor is ridiculous.
Yeah. You know, with that, you can just take the roof part to the top and these cistern bases.
The closed cell with insulation and then 4 inches.
That would do it.
The room is perfectly warm.
It says 7.
Has he ever done a clear analysis of the roof? Like, to see what's
If you not know,
This house has been modified a lot, right? So that-
No, not the original house.
yeah.
Okay, there might be a hidden void he doesn't know about that's going there.
No.
Well, that's why I encouraged you to kind of have an overall analysis of.
You might go with the full stop, but it's clear and then.
You've got R7 for closed cell. Which is
Too high.
Yeah, we have all. Is there?
Yeah, the first inch is considered red. It's averages out to 7. Yeah, it's 2, 3.
They did what you call flash and back, right? Put in 2 inches of spray foam and then the rest will be dense packs.
Yes, I just did 1 inch on the basement.
Yeah.
So you guys used it all.
My parents are. Is there now? Okay, cool.
Okay. So, everybody okay?
Yep.
Okay, is the person representing 40 Lake Street here?
You just,
Okay, would you like to come and talk to us?
Well, be you, wouldn't it?
Well, I'm representing the contractor, Home Depot.
Okay, we'd like the owner here, is the owner here?
Design consultant.
Okay.
Representing.
We normally ask people to come up and talk to us. It's been a little bit of a, so both of you can come up if you're both here representing. Okay, so, go ahead.
What do you want to know?
We'd like you to present the project.
It's a very simple window replacement, like for.
Actually, it's behind the microphone because of the streaming. I'm sorry. Thank you.
So, I guess what is the question? So in the, application, all the photos, all of the diagrams, it's essentially a like for like replacement.
Okay, so are the grids going to be between the glass and the
Yes.
replacement windows?
Yes,
Um,
as they are now.
as the owner, because those were poor replacement windows to begin with, we generally don't approve grids between the glass. So have you entertained other styles, or did you look at the window guidelines before you chose windows?
Yeah, I wasn't directly involved, my brother was.
Okay, so,
So wait, I have questions about why no grids between the glass, because there are no even original windows
I understand.
that are raised, right? So
But
from the
when we
exterior,
approve windows-
only, okay, go ahead.
because of the appearance, the grids between the glass are not generally approved. We will
But
approve.
only from the interior do you notice a difference? You don't, you
You do
wouldn't
from the
notice it.
street. And, so we don't generally approve grids between the glass. We will approve true divided light or simulated divided light with exterior grids. And there,
But the exterior grid is only on the interior of the window. It's never on the exterior of the window.
yeah, yeah,
I'm in the window business.
okay. Well, we do have other windows that we approve that have exterior grids and grids on both sides. So has there been any research done regarding the original configuration of the windows? In terms of the number of divided lights?
I suspect that, I think it was probably the Groffs who are at 87 Beaver,
They're in New Hampshire.
who put those in, because they owned 40 Lake for
Right.
quite a long time. And there are 2 early, I hesitate always to say original, windows in the basement on the east side. They are not marked for replacement, which made me happy. They are 9/6s. Or 6/9.
Yes, but these are the same windows that are throughout.
Those are not, those are old windows.
Okay, and I was in it and took photos of all of them,
Well,
measured all of them.
I'm looking
These,
past and how to,
Right.
you know, I've walked past and had a
these
look.
are the same as some of the other windows in the home.
Well,
Let me clarify, right now, we are trying to consider what is historically appropriate to the house since a replacement is being requested,
Right.
not what's in there now, which is a replacement window. So we're trying to determine what the original configuration of the lights would have been.
Okay,
So that's the discussion.
I think the likelihood is that, what was used as the replacement, configurations, it's pretty good that that is what was there. This is an early house. This is the Campbell house. And, it, would have had small lights, not the larger lights of like a 6/6 of a Greek. So it's, I suspect that the cornice treatment changed very early on. It actually had a different cornice to begin with. But the window sash were probably 9/6 or 6/9, I think, and that's what shows up in almost all of the photographs. Except for the attic windows, there's attic windows on the west end that are 4/4, that are daylight. And I nearly had a knockdown, drag out argument with a friend of mine when we were looking at the house the other day. Whether they were wood or whether they were something else, but we didn't actually make a decision.
How close did you get?
Oh, we were standing on the street looking up, so they're hard to see.
They're not
From
wood,
that
are they?
angle,
Yeah, I'm not even sure that
they're not on the,
They're, are
it's
they?
for replacement, right?
Yeah.
I think that they might be early, they're on either side of the chimney on the west side.
Mhm.
So I think the configurations are probably, and then upstairs it's 6/6s, which would be typical for, because it's a lower upper story. And the first story is, the inside of this house has been so greatly altered. It's really hard to know. I think they're probably okay from the point of view of configuration, but they should be, they shouldn't be interior grids. And honestly, I'd have to go, I'll go back and look. Oh, pardon me.
Nice try.
Do you want this one? You can.
It's okay.
I'm just,
They aren't great replacements, you're absolutely right, but it would be nice to go with something that is a better quality replacement than an interior grid. I think.
so the material that these are made of, those materials, fabrics.
Correct, yeah.
We have, you're saying it's a 100 series?
Correct.
So we've seen higher series with simulated divided lights. Is it not available in the 100 series?
No, and Anderson does not make an exterior divided light, simulated divided light. It's an interior simulated divided light, which is only available on the Woodwright or the 400 series.
Okay.
And it's not really a higher series, it's just a different window line. Made of different materials. So all of their windows are going to have a Fibrex exterior, regardless of whether you went 400 or Woodwright.
understand that.
Woodwright, okay,
It's the divided lights that.
right, but none of them are available on the exterior. The simulated divided light is only on the interior of the window. And that's only in a-
Windows schedule. I took a quick look just to try to wrap my head around what was being proposed, and I see an interior grid color and an exterior grid color called out as both being white. Is that the color of the
grid?
GVG? The color of the grill between the
Correct.
glass. So there's not.
And the reason it's called out twice is because had they gone with a wood interior or a different color interior, say a black exterior,
Okay.
the grid would match the exterior. So it wouldn't be a white exterior on a
I
black
misunderstood that.
exterior window, right? Yeah.
What additional questions do we have?
Are there homes in the area that I could look at a current replacement window with elevated grids on the exterior
Is Cleo
that is not wood?
And Mrs. Green on Cleo's house? We approved of Fibrex.
Are you going back in time?
Yeah, before you,
Yeah.
do you remember that?
Okay.
No, it wasn't. Okay, we're going on 11 years.
Yeah, one that did years ago, that has an exterior.
Which one?
Corner of, Ellen and what, Hannah? Deb Gertzy and Rick Bird, who did that has exterior grids.
So is it a wood window?
I think that one is vinyl clad over it, I remember correctly.
With the elevated, okay. I'll have to
I'm
look.
not sure, I mean, well, there are different companies too.
I mean, we're just,
Oh, I'm-
the SDL is all we're,
Oh,
Yeah.
the
exterior
SDL, I think
SDL.
is all that people are
Correct,
talking about. And you're saying, well, that's not available in this line?
it is not.
Okay.
Okay, so, are
Permanent
there,
grills on the exterior and interior with no spacer between the glass, right? So if you're gonna drill through them, it'll tell you exactly which lines that's available.
Okay, so that's just because it's a more general.
so, it's 78 Fair Street, that is a Fibrex with, SDLs on the outside. We could probably look in the file and tell you what product it is.
you can walk around the village and there's some.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
We're not really doing.
It's not easy to find someone to do rehab right now. There's just very few people who know how to do rehab.
Right, okay.
So it is, if there are going to be divided lights, the exterior, dimensionally appropriate divided light is what we request.
It would be helpful to get in touch with Gary and Janine and asking if that's what they pulled. So I'm pretty sure it is their work. And my guess is they'd be able to say, and proportionally, they look white. So, they don't look wildly out of. And they didn't go putting 8/12s. They look correct for the building. But it would be nice to affirm that if we could. So, as I say, it's a prominent building. Big deal.
Okay,
But it's a really nice
All right.
building.
And going with ideally the 6/9 seems like an appropriate.
First floor, the first story, the second story is 6/6, I think, isn't it?
yes, they're shorter.
Yeah, they're shorter because the upper floor is lower. It's going to lower.
And thank you for leaving the basement windows. So that would be what we would like to see. Any other questions or requests?
So you want to change what is existing to an exterior simulated divided light, is what you prefer.
Yeah.
And then it's still gonna have a screen over top of it either way.
Right.
So,
The screen is reversible or removable. The windows are what we're concerned about. So we're looking at permanent
right,
structural.
so like for like is not acceptable here. Is what you're saying.
The catch here, like for like, would be something that is traditional for a building like this, which would traditionally have been wood. The configuration was seems to have been preserved when they did the first replacement. The replacements are in non-historic materials. So if we're going to go with a replacement, the non-historic material is the thing that we're kind of stumbling with because that's not original fabric. It's a replacement fabric, but we are looking to try and mimic as closely as possible the appearance that there would have been when the first sash was put in. And there may be another phase in between that, but their decision to do 6/9s and 6/6s in the narrow openings suggests to me, and I can be wrong, that's what got pulled when
Yes.
these were put in, rather than there being an intermediate phase. Oftentimes what you find is that a house like this, there was an intermediate phase where people put in 2/2s because that was what was fashionable. That larger glass light was considered more up to date and more modern. It's a really traditional
Okay.
way of modernizing the building.
Okay,
in the 1860s to the early 1900s, depending. And then they might modernize with 1/1s, and then they might go 6/1s or.
right, I mean, I've seen those, but
Right.
I mean, getting to
But
the
see,
point
but-
of this home in particular.
This one in particular, what you have is a vinyl replacement that,
We're not doing vinyl, we're doing fabrics.
I know, but we're, so the configuration is, you're looking to keep that configuration of lights. But we'd like to see a situation where when you look at the building, you can actually see if you look at an old building, the muntins project
Right.
beyond the
Right
glass.
here. like,
Yes, actually, this is the interior, that's different.
I understand, but what I'm saying is that's what you want to
see.
see from the exterior.
You want to see the muntin and the glaze line, or
Right.
something that mimics the muntin and the glaze.
Okay, and so Fibrex is specific to, it's proprietary to Anderson. But you're telling me you found composites that mimic this on the exterior that are
acceptable.
dual pane, insulated glass, right? And 78 Fair Street is the,
78 Fair Street.
okay, so you guys have other lists of manufacturers or others that you have approved? Like, do you have a list of approved?
We don't. They're your standard Anderson competitors if you don't sell that in Anderson. Let's put it that way.
Well, I don't just sell Anderson.
Marvin is another name that comes before us often. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
So
okay, Harvey probably as well.
not so much, but most people in Cooperstown use Bruce Hall, and that's what they sell. So
Okay,
I don't know your other.
so the issue
lines.
specifically with this, with the 100 series is that the mutton is not elevated on the exterior, even though it's gonna be covered with a screen anyway, right? So if they opted to not put muttons back in or grills back in,
We would be asking why, since the building, the traditional window on the building would have been similar to the windows in the basement. That would have been, and if you're replacing that, as Jesse just explained, the goal is to get back to what would have been the traditional light configuration for the building when it was built.
right?
Which
but
appears to be the case in this instance, but the catch is that the mountain and the doesn't. If the grid is in case, you're looking at a smooth piece of glass on the exterior of the building.
Right,
And that's not.
but that's what you're looking at right now anyway.
But because you're coming to us for replacement, we are.
Of a replacement that's been in there for 4
I understand
years
that,
now.
but this
50
board
years?
has been put in place since then. And it is to try to get back to the historic appearance of that building. So when materials are replaced, the goal is to look at replacing them in a historically appropriate manner. Now, they do
Right.
not
So, but I
have to
mean,
be simulated divided light on the inside. The owner may choose to just do simulated divided light on the outside. We do not mandate that it be simulated divided light on the inside. But we are not, per the guidelines, prone to approving divided lights between the glass, and we have certainly had this conversation with many people and not.
Right.
There's a list of guidelines on the village website.
Well, what I'm asking for are, obviously you have approved some and not, so I was really asking. Where is your list of the ones that you have approved? These are what are acceptable in the town of Cooperstown, rather than,
The list on the website,
Which is guidelines. We
window
don't have those.
guidelines.
okay,
Yeah.
so you haven't compiled a list to say these are the manufacturers. styles of
No,
windows.
we don't recommend manufacturers, contractors.
Not allowed to recommend specific contractors or companies.
Manufacturers or style of window, that's what I'm after.
Well,
Because
The
looking
style-
through the guidelines, it didn't
the
state
style
that.
isn't the
It's different.
manufacturer, the style is the number of divided lights and the exterior mounts.
Okay,
And it's gonna be
Okay.
dependent on the style of the home.
all right,
Yeah.
I'll let the owner
and
know.
those-
May I ask you the name and?
Yep, absolutely.
And did you have any other questions if you're here for 40 Fair?
No, you referenced Bruce Hall, is that a company that?
It's a local, it's the
Vendor that you see off?
And we're and so because they often carry the products that we hear about, that's why I was saying that was, but it sounds like your rep can get you similar products. It might be a different manufacturer.
Okay, and the lights you were talking about, that's just the number of
Panes, yeah, people.
panes,
Yeah,
okay.
lighted.
And I've been able to find some photos of the house from the 1850s,
Great.
you know, but they're still, you know, they're a little fuzzy, you know.
But
But I
yeah,
haven't found
usually
anything,
get,
can't find anything from 17.
no, well, you're not gonna,
Photography doesn't come along until
Well, I-
1939s.
Remember the store was size,
Yeah.
so we have the same problem, but.
yeah.
That's just the external, you want something that's actually on the outside of the window that creates like the. There's
Yeah,
actually something
yes.
there.
Yes, the dimension of a mutton,
But these,
that would have been,
if you're talking about the things that are inside the windows for.
we don't,
For energy efficiency or whatever.
no, they're not in there for energy efficiency.
Well, I mean, they're inside the 2 panes, the double pane window.
Yeah, they're just,
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
it's a shortcut.
Right, but visually, that they look similar, but unless you're at, right up to next to the house.
For
you're
the
looking at-
convenience of cleaning essentially is
Oh,
what.
yeah, okay. So-
Yes.
With simulated divided light, you will have to wipe out each individual one.
Yeah, and I tried to clean one of the windows and that insert on the inside just kind of fell right off.
Yeah, that would happen. And you do not,
They were individually glazed, like they were
And
rigid.
the curtains are like snapped in, like they use like these little brackets, you probably know what I'm talking about.
we do not require inside divisions. So you can get windows with just the exterior divisions, so the ease of cleaning on the inside still, yes, it makes cleaning on the exterior more complicated. But there is certainly a difference from the street in appearance, and they are available, so it sounds like you can look at other brands if Anderson doesn't make them.
Thanks.
Don't, thank you. Thank you both for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. You're not going back. We're not, I'm sorry. Okay. C3 Elm Street.
Hello,
Hi.
Sean Sanders, Jay Schultes from Orlando.
Hi.
Here with some documents that we're gonna present to you. Dana and I recently bought 63 Elm and we opened up the interiors a bit and wanted to insulate, and we found that we wanted to probably replace all of the vinyl windows with Sierra Pacific's H3, and yeah, today Jay and I were standing on the porch looking at the neighbors' windows, and they had the double hung, double light, which we found very aesthetically pleasing, and kind of that conversation you guys were just having. So yeah, I was just wondering if you're amenable to us potentially switching those out for the H3s.
Are they all vinyl?
No,
So there's-
so the H3, oh wait, the
These
existing one.
The
windows,
existing ones.
yeah, except for 2 stained glass windows, which I would also like to talk to you about. But you're probably gonna want to keep those, I'm gathering, so yeah, so they're all, yes, they're all vinyl throughout.
Okay.
They're all 1/1 vinyls. And I suspect, but don't know for certain, that that's pretty close to what the original configuration was throughout the building.
We're also fine with just doing the 1/1.
What year is that built, you know?
It was 1880s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
80s, it's a hair before 1890. I said circa 1890 in the list, but it's actually, it's kind of stick stylish. So
Yeah.
it's 1.5 story.
What
It was
is the
beautiful on the
style?
Stick style is a Victorian eclectic style. Once you get into the 1870s, 1880s, here it's more 1880s. You start getting what are called Victorian eclectic styles, and it was kind of like the AutoCAD of the day. But there was, but the ones that survive are really representative of sort of this eclectic way of designing. And people, so you get all kinds of surface finishes. Stick style tends to allude to buildings that have a variety of surface treatments. So your fish scale shingles in certain areas and the little bracket lines that run under windows or above windows. That sort of variation is really characteristic of stick style. When you get to Queen Anne, well, people say Queen Anne thinks spindles. And you have a late Queen Anne porch, which actually was not built with the house.
Yeah, we were actually wondering if this little
That
thing, was that the porch? Was that the front porch?
no, it was actually, I can tell you more about that in a minute.
Okay, yeah.
Because yes, there is something going on there. I puzzled over those pictures and went back and looked at the house several times. But the stick style is these, very, it's articulation, surface articulation. And it's kind of like, oh, look at all these new finishes that are being created in these steam powered mills because they were easy to make. And so that's what you get. And you often get it in panels that are set up.
Just the number of funky little brackets.
Yes, it's
everywhere.
It's really characteristic of what people call stick style. And that's mostly late 1880s, and then we start to shift into something that's more Queen Anne as you get into the 1890s, and then you start morphing into colonial revival and Georgian revival, and it's one big soup. But you can. This house is stylistically really very clean. I'm so sorry you cleared out the first floor. The first floor was so gorgeous. It was really intact. It was great.
Well, we're gonna keep all of the interior trim when you walk in and up the stairwell.
And the panel, that lovely panel.
Up in the stairwell and the landing up there.
It is a it's a great house.
It's an adorable house.
Yeah, but it's, because I knew a couple who lived there, Miles lived there.
Oh, I didn't realize it's in what was, okay.
And I always imagined like, got a kid or two now. Yes, congratulations. And having a family on with the way that's configured is hard. So it's not our purview to speak to the inside. It was really cool inside.
We are keeping a good portion of it.
Okay, great. I'm thrilled to hear it. It really was adorable. Is adorable. And in terms of the windows, the window configuration on the top, that's a character defining window. Really sorry. There's no way.
That's okay.
But what I'm going to also say is that taking out that panel, you're not going to get much more light. It faces north, and that
I know.
That porch was added between 19.
And it's got a big tree in front of it. I know there's not a lot of light coming in now.
It was built, the porch changes before the 1909 Sanborn shows a little entry porch coming up to the main entrance on the left hand side, and the spindle detail that's there, the vertical spindles that go all the way to the header. That's original, or it was there. I'm pretty sure it's original. It's really characteristic of these things. But someone after 1909, before 1915, put that porch on the front. And the thing that finally took me off was what you said, the bracketed piece above those windows. It's cut off by the porch. So if you ever got up in that ceiling, you'd find the rest of that little pent roof up there. So because that pent roof is cut off. I'm glad to hear that someone's going to do something about the windows. And I think it was all 1/1s likely, although some of the wider ones might have been 2/2. It's hard to say. There might have been something with the stained glass on the sides if you've got one that's big and square, and I'd be happy to come and look at that with you.
We have the stained glass. We have one in the stairwell.
Okay. And that would have been absolutely characteristic, and you often find them in attic openings as well.
So keep the stained glass and the little fish scales. So question regarding that so I have quite a large gap on each side of these windows.
Okay.
And in that there's not much light.
You could,
can we widen those?
Well, if you put in a window sash that the windows, I think those windows are pretty clunky. They're really wide compared to what was there. Probably the original width of the sash, the what are called stiles and rails. These are stiles, these are rails. It was probably narrower. They were lighter. And
as far as the trim goes, I could maximize my width by a bit.
Yeah.
And would that be allowable by you?
I'd actually be deserved.
So you're talking about this trim, like here?
No, he's talking about, actually on all of the windows.
Okay.
The vinyl, they narrowed the windows using
Right.
using lumber, a little bit of lumber to try and, because they wanted to put in stock sash rather
Yeah.
than custom.
Yeah, so if you can,
No, we got these.
when you get into. If
So
you
let's
remove
see what
the
you've done with
material
these.
on the interior walls, can you see filler? Can you see where they?
There's just a large gap in between.
It's all balloon frame, so. It's not like the window openings are specifically framed, it's just a balloon frame house.
But there are gaps between the studs and the window jamb.
The rough openings are
Yeah,
larger.
the rough openings are, they're about 3.5 inches. So my desire would be is if I could eliminate the gap between these two, I don't know.
No, you pick up quite a bit. Of
Yeah, if I could eliminate that and also widen them, 3 to 4 inches on each side.
Actually widen the openings or widen.
Yeah, the question is,
You don't want to widen.
exterior trim wise.
So on the interior, this is what I'm looking at, right? So this is a bay window.
Right.
And so my desire would be to close that gap.
This gap here.
This gap here, he
No.
could speak about
No, those are not.
the size of the window.
So
You want the trim to remain,
The
okay, so
exterior trim.
on both sides.
Yeah, your exterior trim is part of, it really is part of the design.
That,
of the
okay, so
building.
that is defining of,
Yeah,
of
but see
that, yeah.
how wide this is relative, this width.
Right, so you're saying to narrow down.
Yeah, and the window sash.
Well, they would have had sash weights in there. So.
They did, there were a lot of.
Yeah, there would have been sash weights.
Yeah.
Because this was a fancy house.
Was it?
Pretty fancy, yeah. Someone spent a lot of money on this house. And the sash weights, that would have been the up-to-date technology of the time, the sash weights. I mean, this house next door, I know, doesn't have any, but it was built in 1868 or 69.
So like before sash weights, they just lifted the window and pegged it to the side.
Mhm.
They should have like a little spring loaded or just like.
Oh, no, if you had sash weights, you didn't have to.
No, I'm saying pre-sash weights.
Right,
Before sash weights.
Mhm.
I'll look at my house, and show you what the springs look like. But you can also see, these are extra wide because the way that they've put them in, these are heavier looking than the windows than the original sash. The original sash would have picked up an inch on either side. They're narrower. But I'm not sure what Sierra Designs does.
I did have one, maybe Shawnee and both had the same question. Which windows in Cooperstown, which windows fall under the purview of the board? Is it like, what's the rule? Is it based on if you can see it from the sidewalk? Is it just plain view from the front? Like which,
Any exterior change in material.
even the rear of the house?
Yeah. So our biggest concern is maintaining the street facing view of the house in terms of.
Yeah.
In terms of its historic integrity.
Yeah.
But the law is.
You have access, you have purview on all four sides.
Correct. So we will review things that allow for changes on the rear of the house, depending, it just depends on the situation.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but the law reads that all the exterior changes, materials. If it's changing material, it has to be reviewed. So tell us about your windows.
Sure, yeah, I mean, Shawnee was looking to do the H3 window, which would be basically equivalent of the Marvin Elevate series. Similar options, like, of course, we do SDL inside, outside, with divide place in between the glass for those. It sounds like that's the main thing you're normally concerned about, but in this case, you're proposing to him 1/1, so that might not be a concern here. But it's an exterior, it's aluminum clad, and then the interior is a wood finish. I can show it to you.
So it's an aluminum clad vinyl.
So the frame is vinyl. So the frame component's vinyl, but it's aluminum clad on the exterior, it's wood finish on the inside. And it has concealed jam liners, So you don't see any vinyl, even on the inside of the house, you don't see any vinyl.
And it's paintable or it comes pre-painted?
Yeah, you can get it painted. I mean, this is just clear coated, but you can get them.
Oh, I meant exterior.
Oh, exterior, I mean, we have like 200 colors.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you choose the color you.
Yeah, it's gonna take a while to figure out which color.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't
Back
have
to
to be
Dana.
white
She's-
or anything.
I mean, when salmon went on, I thought, oh, that's cool.
I actually kind of like the same.
Yeah, I love.
I don't think
salmon.
it's gonna stay. It's not my decision.
I thought they did a really nice job with those color
Yeah.
choices.
Yeah, it's super cute. Yeah.
Traditionally, it was, the house was the traditional, ochre and, sienna, like 73 on
Okay.
Peace Place. That was the colors it was, and then there was a lighter ochre kind of yellow, before that paint job. So,
Just side questions, historic preservation wise, do you guys have colorless for exteriors
No.
or just?
No, we just,
Up to you.
the
Okay.
question is.
Wow.
I know it's like Victoria.
Walk
Falls,
around Cooperstown.
Yeah, I'm just
A lot of wacky things.
Um,
Blue currently.
You know,
used to be really.
this window has, sash locks around the corner. I mean, it sounds like you guys are just focused on the exterior, but yeah, wood components on the inside, aluminum clad exterior.
Can you bring it closer just a little?
Come closer, my dear. We're getting punchy.
Yeah. Kind of like the Marvin, like the elevated line. The architectural components, but it's just a little bit more affordable product, so people, when you go to the full architectural product, we're talking 25% more. So for someone like Shawnee that has like 30 windows to replace, I mean, it becomes really stressful on the budget if you're trying to bring your house back to. So that's the H3. I don't know if anybody has any questions about that one.
Well, the village doesn't review, and no review is required for color. Something we do often ask is whether or not the color can be changed.
Right.
Is it paintable?
Is it paintable? That's.
And-
Oh, is it paintable?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, I mean, aluminum's paintable. but
Right.
Technically,
It
it would,
serves as prep and-
yeah, it would, potentially make the window operate less efficiently, things like that.
But
If somebody really wanted to do it, I would probably actually recommend to them to paint the frame and then buy new sash the color that they want. For it to operate the best, but yeah, I mean, it's totally doable.
yeah, it's, I mean, subsequent owners, but might want to change it, but.
It'd be pretty hard to like strip the aluminum off and put new aluminum on. It's technically doable, but it's not time efficient. Yeah.
Special.
And it could be, somebody could paint it with, these days, there's guys are great with spray gun, masking and everything. They could totally paint it. But paint would adhere to it but even vinyl is technically paintable these days.
Oh, yeah.
So.
All the edging on my roof is painted to match the
Yeah.
house, not that ugly white that
Right.
doesn't match my house at all.
Yeah.
Oh,
But painting vinyl in place versus new vinyl is a whole different volume. So.
was pleasantly surprised at how well paint sticks to vinyl. Just scrub it well.
Rough it up.
Soap and water.
Bleach. It sounds like you definitely approve the 1/1 if he.
I think they should probably were 1/1s throughout. It'd be worth having a look, and I just live around the corner. Dana knows me.
Yeah.
I coached her 100 years ago.
Nice.
Not officially, but I was a volunteer at the time. I'd be happy to walk around the corner and just, sort of have a look and see.
Yeah, that'd be
I
great.
think that it was probably all 1/1s. The ones that I would hesitate on are the ones that are single rather than the doubled one. The double ones were all 1/1s, I'm sure,
Mhm.
given the time.
Okay.
Like the narrower ones.
Yeah, they were the narrow paired ones, but the larger ones, there may have been a few more that had the color block rims. I'm not sure.
So if I were to just go with double hung, there wouldn't be much of an opposition to that stylistically. I think.
No,
Yeah, that'd be fine.
I'd speak for myself. Does anybody else have any questions or concerns?
I can't widen them, right? I can't get rid of that middle part. no.
no, sorry.
That's all right.
That is real.
Yeah, that is,
The reason
yeah,
that that's character defining is because, you've been here long enough to be listening. This period, verticality plays a larger role in design than it would in a few years' time when you move into Foursquare Prairie style, that kind of thing, where we start to move horizontally instead.
Yeah.
I've thought about that house with the siding that got boogered. And that's what's going on, that it's that you're trying to keep,
Yeah,
you're trying
keep
not to
going.
enclose it and pull it up. Your house has a much greater emphasis on some degree of verticality, very carefully mixed with horizontality. I mean,
Mhm.
it's a little jewel of a house.
yeah, we love it. We're excited.
I'm glad someone really wants it.
Yeah.
It's very sweet. So if there are not any other questions, if somebody wants to make a motion, are people comfortable with the window being proposed? And I guess that's the question at hand.
I will make a motion. That H Park provide a certificate of appropriateness for the project at 63 Elm Street. Under criteria 2B, 2C, 3A, 3C, and 5.
You gave that some thought.
He's a lot better at it than I am.
That's what I used to do before I retired, I sit and think.
No, you just.
I'm still doing it.
Does anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? For winning the endurance contest, Liz votes yes.
David, yes.
Great.
Yes.
And that is the replacement of all but the stained glass windows
All right.
for clarification in the.
Yeah, and also keeping that fish scale panel in the front.
Yeah. I am fond of it, although, you know, I do like how it looks. So it's just want all
Yeah,
that
I
extra
don't-
light, you know.
I don't think you'd pick up much light there,
Yeah.
if it were on the south side, yeah, but you wouldn't.
And it really will, if you did it, it would take away from.
You
the-
look at it
the
afterward.
Charm of that front,
Right.
it really adds to it, believe it or not.
I do have a question. Now, so we have a bedroom in the back there. And it faces south and it's got one of the little windows. I mean, they're relatively little. Are you opposed to us putting another window in the side of the house? Or would I have to?
Is it the
Drop.
side,
It's the side that
Eagle
faces,
Street side?
yes,
Yeah.
just ends up being a dark room.
You would
It's just,
you have to come back.
Just come back with the drawing, you
okay,
know, we will review it.
Yeah.
But give us a clear sense of
where it would be.
where it would be.
Yeah, and then you'd want it to follow the same proportions of the wood on the existing.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
Yeah.
so
And
think
it
about,
trimmed out the same ones.
yeah, okay.
yeah. And I'm not sure if any of these images are that side of the house.
I don't know. I don't believe any that I
Yeah,
submitted. to.
so you really want to.
The downstairs, like the playroom by the bathroom.
Clear understanding of that, and
That house was actually built on the same lot as the one next to it at the corner of Eagle. They shared a lot. So that house was built second by the people who owned that lot.
Okay, so that's why the
Amy's.
garage is
I think so.
shared.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think so.
okay, yeah, because it's like right along that,
When it's mapped in 1909, they share a lot.
right?
So.
So I can see into a garage from some gaps in the side.
Better than seeing into some other parts of the house.
Yes, totally.
so, okay.
Thanks so
great.
much.
Thank you for
Great.
your patience.
Thank you.
And bring us back the drawing.
Okay, but we're good to go on. Yeah.
Clear images, yes.
But otherwise, I'm good for the windows. Good to go on
This
this.
application's been approved as.
Great.
Stipulations. With window divisions,
Pardon?
with the stipulations of the window divisions, yeah.
So do you want to clarify that with me with the stipulations of the double hung? Yeah, okay, not that, okay, yeah.
I can,
Stated in the motion.
yeah, I can look, as I say, the reason that windows were narrow, that the narrower ones, would have been 1/1s is it's a technology thing.
Mhm.
cylinder glass, which is what was used in that period. When it gets wider, it's harder to manage.
So keep the paint smaller.
So the tendency is to work with a narrow, so my house has little narrow windows in the front with a little pent roof. But when you get around to the side, they're 2/2s because being full width soft, full width like it's just, it's a lot of glass without any support in between the glass is so thin.
Yeah.
It's got a different feel about it than the later glass.
So do you want me to clarify whether they should be too light before I order the windows, or should I just go with the double hungs?
So is he okay with do one-on-ones everywhere, or was there a caveat that he?
So, I think
Yeah.
so,
Okay.
Yeah, it should, I
Okay,
think
great.
1/1 should be fine everywhere.
And I will make the interior beautiful, I promise. I promise.
I know you will.
Okay.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
51 doesn't appear to be represented.
Yeah.
That's about an hour ago.
Oh, yeah.
So we move on to review the minutes.
Okay. Have you been over to look at what's going on over there?
I drove by this week and saw that there were trusses there. Didn't take a moment to stop.
Yeah, they're doing a ton of gutting.
Gotta get the interior.
Yeah, actually, there's already a lot of new, it's all recessed lights and I didn't go in, but no, I had a good view today.
I didn't see a dumpster out there yet. And then even with most of the stuff there is vinyl, I think you have the right to remove vinyl.
Oh, yeah, I'm really curious to see they're taking the vinyl off, because I think there's a lot of windows and doors that are covered.
Yeah.
Good night.
Can I almost say?
Oh, yeah,
First,
no, we don't, you're up. He's fine.
I encourage them to do some exploration there to see how much is siding. is- How much siding is under the.
Yeah,
Give it that.
It's-
Yeah.
that's a rough house. My God, is it rough? I'm amazed with the fire inspector.
Right.
After. It's, I can't imagine how you would get out of an awful lot of this building.
Egress looked awful.
Yeah, it is a shocking building. And
Yeah.
and it doesn't look to me as if they're making it any less shocking.
I think that their intention is to, that windows that are at least not falling out of the building. And then you can see proposed vinyl. If there's anything, if you've had a chance to review the application, if there's anything that jumps out, and happy to get back with him on it, so that next time he.
Yeah, it's the one at the corner of the driveway.
We can do that, we can do that by Camille.
Okay.
But I think this is like, the second time. He's struggling to get to the means that were at the times that we provided.
Yeah,
Put him at the top of the agenda next time, since.
He was going to include a fence. And so I held back as long as I could in hopes that he would be able to include that fence in the application for this property. But yeah, and then he'll be close with his eyes.
that building is just, oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the portion that is on the stone foundation may be fine. But the additions don't even look like they line up.
Yeah.
And there's a great big addition to the side, and then there's a huge one off the back. I told the semblance to look, because I almost wondered if it was built as a 2-unit house, that there's a door missing on that porch. But it's not drawn as a 2-unit dwelling, so I don't know what the story is.
It's the kind of building where they've been like repairing the foundation with spray foam for years.
And duct tape,
That's
the owner.
It's really bad.
Jesse, what year?
I think I saw that in 1900, maybe 1905, but it's probably no later than that. It's a stone foundation. It's a nice stone foundation, actually, quite nice. The stone foundation is quite attractive. I like the little porch on the front, but I would eat my hat if we're not missing a load of openings. It's just like,
Right.
it's built in that period, people are relying on daylight, and there's just not good daylight coming into that building anymore.
Well, that west kind of facing wing is between the.
Yeah, it's got no windows on the front, it's got windows on the side. But yeah, it's a really. And I'm not sure it was ever much of a building, you know.
I did a walk around with him and I think that in just verbally, he had talked about the possibility of adding a window to the front, but I didn't see that expressed in the application. So,
Yeah,
Well, he says 17 windows. It'd be interesting to see. The count exactly
You
what
want to
they
see-
are and
Yeah.
that would sort of. Also. Sort of. Yeah, indicate where, oh, how about it becomes 18 here.
Okay. Thank you.
it's not the longest meeting we've had. The longest one we had on Zoom was 4 hours.
Does anybody want to approve the minutes?
I do.
Thank you.
The minutes look great, Martha.
Yes, Marcia did a great job as usual. Thank you, Marcia. So
So I
David,
move to
let's
approve.
see. I think you seconded.
Yeah.
Yeah, just you did it.
I'll second then.
Yeah, the other.
Okay.
I approve.
After, here we go. Yes.
Unanimous? Thank you all. I'm sorry, and it's just. Just,
I knew.
well. Just, brutal. I apologize. Yeah. John, can we?
shut down.